Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Be More podcast. I'm Brittany.
I'm Maria, and today, number one, I'm tired again. So, guys, if I just somehow dissociate, it's because I'm tired. And number two, we have a guest today.
Yes.
Jada, welcome to the podcast. Um,
Having
Jada, Jada is Brittany's friend from college. So, if you guys want to jump into that and how you guys met and everything,
Yeah.
go
Well,
right
do you
ahead.
want to, Jada asked, before we started recording, Jada asked Maria how,
Oh,
and I love when Maria tells the story of how we know each other. So I'm going to just let her
oh,
do
damn
that.
it! Put me on the spot. Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
me and Brittany, Jada, have been friends since fourth grade.
Yeah.
love
Very
it.
yes, one of my very like longtime friends.
Mhm.
We moved to the same town around that time, fourth grade, right before like the summer before fourth grade. Like she
Mm.
moved right across the street from me.
Okay.
And ever since from fourth grade to end of high school, like we've been like close and inseparable basically. Like she would come over just randomly
Yeah.
and
I was
Oh,
like
at her house.
yeah.
and she'd just be like in my room and I'd be like, "Oh, hi. Like I guess you're over now." like so it was very open door policy between the two of us. And
Yeah.
then
Somebody to do something with. That's the
yeah,
important part, though. That, like, I didn't grow up around kids. I grew up with a lot of like older people around me.
gotcha. Yeah,
Um,
no, we were really lucky in the fact that our development when we moved was super new and everyone had like families and like kids our same
that's
age
true.
and like we
Yeah.
all went to the same school.
Yeah.
Um so and then we both actually went to Rutgers. We all so all three of us went to
All
Rutgers.
three of us went to Rutgers.
Yeah,
Okay.
at the same time. Except I like I went to the business school. So and like I had a whole different yeah. I'm an accountant.
Yeah.
I'm not a creative.
Like we felt our conservatory style was something like what they were doing over
I
there
know.
was next level.
Which is
You guys were
why
next level too. We
Which
could
is
not comprehend.
another reason why Maria and I didn't really like get to. We barely saw each other or got to talk to each other in those 4 years.
Right, Brittany? I didn't know you had outside friends. And
I
same.
know, right? It's such a
I came
strange thing.
I came to Rutgers with two other friends from Chicago, and I saw one who was a dancer.
Yeah, like yeah, it's so weird when
I mean,
we fall in the dance. Like college is a vortex.
Yeah.
oh, absolutely.
Like
Even
for
my friends
everybody.
in college, even my friends in college are like, "You have friends outside the business school?
Yeah,
Like,
it's weird.
like childhood friends that go here and you didn't tell us?" I'm like, "I don't see them. Like, it's two completely different like paths. And also Rutgers is so big.
That's true.
It's huge.
So
Huge.
true.
And were you guys? What part of New Jersey were you from?
So
And-
we're actually so Rutgers, New Brunswick, right? We're like 2 or 3 towns over. We live like two or
Mhm.
three towns over.
So, Brittany, did you go home a lot?
I probably should have more. I did not.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I felt like the
Yeah.
people close were always out. So
Yeah, I
You
I don't
wanted-
think I ever actually really. I did go to see my parents whenever I could, but I
Yeah.
worked like 3 jobs through college.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
I just did not have the time. But I
you
know like
wanted to commute.
and like that too. And it's like the even driving 20 minutes, 30 minutes, it takes like forever because of all the
Especially
traffic
in
around the
Jersey.
area.
Yeah.
So
Especially the roads that you have
yeah,
to take to go home.
but yeah, so that's how we know each other. But Jada, you were it's so you and how did you even end up in New Jersey?
Yes, that's my first question.
So when I was looking for schools in Chicago, I was like, Illinois State, University of Illinois. Like I could do it, but I was going through the process of like, I know if I don't try and do dance, I will regret it. So I'm gonna try
Mm,
and do dance. So I
Gotcha.
wanted to post myself near major cities. I didn't see myself being as a like, I'm going west type chick. So I was like, New York it is. So as I was talking to my SAT tutor, she was like, this school has a great women's basketball program, but the name Rutgers like stuck out to me. You ever like the name just sticks with you? So I'm like, let me
yeah.
research this college.
Yeah.
When I went there to audition, I loved it. I loved this close proximity to New York. And I got a scholarship, bless my
Oh,
heart.
cool.
So, that kind of sealed the deal.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It is a very good school. It's the location because it's both Philly and the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like
It can
right
be
there.
as small as you want and as big as you want.
Exactly, exactly. Oh, that's cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
I'm learning
you're
things
in
already. I didn't
Chicago.
know. I wasn't sure. I was like, it's so funny because I can't even honestly think back that long ago. Like all the conversations that we had in our like freshman orientations were like finding out where everyone's from and like how they got there. I don't remember that far back, but I was like, I know she's from Chicago. I don't remember how she got to Jersey. So that makes a lot of sense.
Bless your SAT person.
Yeah, for real. I feel like our counselors in high school were always like, well, whatever you want to do, like don't strive so far. Like I vividly remember having conversations like that where they were like telling us not to do stuff. and it was not okay.
The
So,
difference in
you having
education.
a counselor who was supportive.
I was like, yo, I'm a dancer. I'm not even trying to do AP anything. They're like, we got you.
Good for you.
They
So
knew who I was.
you knew you wanted to be a dancer real young?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to go for it. There are things now that I'm like, oh, I want to do these other things. But I knew at that time at 18, I was like, I'm going to try.
Cool.
That's the thing that
amazing.
it's so funny because in the dance world we get told we didn't have a choice. So like the background on like the dance program at Rutgers, Maria, like if you come in at a later point, like if you go to another school or you have another major and then you decide, hey, I want to transfer into dance, you can't do that at Rutgers. You have to go through their BFA program. So if you transfer in as like a junior or a sophomore, you have to start from their program as a freshman.
Yes.
Like if you
it was very hard to combine with other disciplines. It was
and I don't know how there are like so many kids that did like, so Jada and I both went through the master's program.
Gotcha.
So we did the 5-year track, but there are kids who did like other like communications majors and other. I don't know how they did that.
Yeah, English, Evelyn, like English.
Yeah.
Like props.
Yeah, they double.
How did that? Because I'm just thinking like you guys were both in performance. I would assume like you guys did all like the conservatory, like all that stuff. How did you? How I'm wondering how they fit in another major.
I don't know how people did it. It was hard enough with the EDM because we had to like we got forgiven. We got like a lot of overriding, or we were allowed to miss certain classes and stuff like that.
Like,
really?
Here and there.
Yeah, like they let us do that.
Summers and winters, and maybe that's how people are doing it.
Oh yeah, that's probably true. Because we did. That's actually really smart, like for them to do that. But that's a lot of stuff. But like we had to. I've definitely felt the same way that you felt, Jada. Like I fell in love with dance so young, and it was the only thing that I felt like it felt right. It just felt like me. And when you are being told like, right, you have to go to school, you have to decide what you're doing for the rest of your life, even though it's not the way it really is. Like in your mind, you're like, I want to do the thing that I love doing. And if you really want to go to Rutgers because they're like a top 5 conservatory program, if you make that decision, like that's your decision because you can't transfer in later. Like you have to decide at a young age. So I definitely feel you. Like if you're gonna go for it, it's a great school to go for it with.
Can I ask a question?
Oh boy.
No, it's just a general question. Nothing like I guess it's like dance specific, but isn't it? I guess it's a statement. I'm very tired, guys. Isn't it crazy that like when you're 18 or whatever, you're making these big ass decisions? You're like, yeah, I'm gonna be in this BFA program, hoping that I'll finish in 5 years, and like like 18. It's crazy. Like going back and I'm like, my sister is 16. Like she's turning 17 this coming year. I'm like, I don't know how I made a big life decision at 18, majoring in accounting.
Seriously, there are things I didn't even know about myself, but I mean, something was on my heart at that time. So I mean, meant to be in that sense, but crazy because it's because you have 4 years, and it's like, how much have you feel like you've gone through so many changes in college and stuff, but then it's like I got out and it's like, oh hey, back to square one. It really felt like, I don't know if you guys felt like that. I don't know if you went right into getting a job, but I danced professionally for a little bit.
Oh, you did? Oh, cool.
So the whole transition, like, okay, you want to be a dance major, but no, you're gonna have to fight every single day.
I'm sure.
Is it worth it for you to be at the bar here, there, still doing it? When like you have so many more responsibilities.
Yeah, you have to live your life still.
That's the way.
Yeah.
It's hard. You can't like adult and do all the responsible things that you need to do as an adult and really nurture that type of profession. You need to. It's hard. It's possible, but it's really difficult.
I like the way you phrased it. Nurture that type of profession. Nurture that commitment.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. A lot of people don't nurture. Yeah, nurture is a very good word, Brittany, actually, for this because it's like you get thrown into this and then like into adulting right after college, and you're kind of just in survival mode and not nurturing yourself.
Yeah, like and I think it's a reality for like when we go to in any like discipline, whatever we study, we go to school and we're so used to having a routine, or we're so used to, and like what motivates us a lot of the time is knowing like I'm gonna graduate, I'm gonna like there's an end result, and then you get brought out into this adult life, and it can be really hard to know like what happens from here. And then not only are you balancing like it goes from schoolwork to potentially like working part-time to like trying to have a social life to like now you're adding on more plates, right? Like you're adding on a family, maybe you're working in like you have a relationship, now you have a career, and like then you can hit a point where I know like I felt like this, and I'm sure like I know Jada, with what you're doing with the blog, like maybe you can relate to this, like you realize like I have other things that I'm passionate about, and I totally went through that like reawakening. And Marie and I have talked about this a lot. Like I got out of college and I was like, okay, well, I don't really know who the person that I was the last 5 years was, and I don't really like that person very much. So I want to do something to like really find myself and be myself and like feel better about like the way that I'm interacting with the world.
Yes.
And it's not easy. It's like it's just we get so much pressure. Like we're still children, like you said, Maria. Like you're 18, you're still a child. You get all of this pressure, and then like you get all of this expectation, and it's like you might not even, your brain isn't even fully developed yet. It's like this is just so it's just not a situation that's really ezy by
Not
any
at
means.
Sure.
all. Yeah, there's so many expectations, but of like
Of everything,
dance,
of life.
dance life
Yeah.
is gonna be and stuff, but there's so much more behind the scenes. So anybody listening to this, prepare to fight for your dream.
Oh
That's
yeah,
Absolutely.
life. So YOLO.
for real.
YOLO.
For real. It is. It's a lot of fight. And like for any way, shape, or form, whatever dream you're going for, like living the life that you want to live can be very different from the way that we're kind of taught about what it looks like to live your life.
Mhm.
If we want to live it with certain levels of happiness or our own expectations, a lot of the times we have to go against maybe the things that we're told. And when we're not really given those expectations to understand, in my mind, and maybe you agree with this, but in my mind, especially in dance, we were told a lot of like the nice on the surface of what it would look like, but a lot of the nitty gritty behind it wasn't always like really valid representation of what it looked like to be in the
Mhm.
dance world.
Yeah.
So especially after I got injured, I was like, well, and I started to really like dive into all of the other side of what it looks like to be injured and how do you manage yourself as a dancer. I was like, I won't survive that.
Yeah.
I will not survive that. And I give you so much credit. And I respect you so much for going after it and still doing it. But you had a huge, like you were in Jersey. I mean, after school, did you head right back to Chicago?
Yep, I went right back to Chicago and I started an apprenticeship with a company here like a few months later.
That's
And I
amazing.
did that for 2 years as I was like being a teaching artist and setting works on different community groups in Chicago.
That's awesome.
And then I got my full-time job and I'm a year 3 teacher.
Yay!
nice.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's amazing.
How long have you been teaching full-time?
I am not teaching full time.
Oh, you aren't? You
No.
don't?
I do
we
not teach
go.
full time. So I have, outside of this whole situation that I do with Maria, I after I finished school,
Mhm.
I went to like 6 different schools and I like got through the interview processes and I actually turned down a job because I was not happy with the systems that were in place in Jersey and like the politics involved in the school systems. So I spent the 6 months after school actually building a business of my own. So I privately coach and train dancers now, so that they don't have to go through all the injuries that I went through while we were in school. But yeah, that's what I do. So I consult and I train them and I work on technique and all of that.
What's the name of your business, Brittany?
BC Artistry.
BC Artistry. Okay. Very cool. So you turned down a job. So you've stepped away from the teaching.
I have. I've done like half and half. So I still work within school systems. I still do some consulting, and I work with some teachers. And I still do like show choreography, which is a big thing that I used to do when we were in school.
Yeah.
So I work with like 4 or 5 different school districts, and I choreograph their shows and I help co-direct.
Yeah.
So I love it too much to not do it. Like it's like this thing that
Right.
was just kind of like developed inside of me.
Yeah.
So I like to fit it in every once in a while, but I don't have full-time teaching.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
So what does that even look like in Chicago right now? Are your schools open?
Uh, no,
Okay.
they are not. We are all remote,
Oh
and
boy.
it's been this way since the top of the year, and I predict it's gonna ride out. This is
Yeah.
just the 2020 to 2021 school year, virtual.
Well, yeah, oh boy. I can't imagine like just teaching in that setting. Hopefully teaching dances. What age are you teaching?
I teach 9 to 13,
Okay.
and it's just crazy because all of the things that I felt a way about last year virtually don't matter. That's how just non-permanent things are.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh yeah.
I can't even be the most effective teacher in a sense that like I can't see your body, I
Mhm.
can't read your body language that well, but what I can do is foster good relationships with you.
Yeah, I love that.
So it's just like, hey y'all, what y'all eating for breakfast?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's the kids must love that, honestly, because like
Yeah.
sometimes like because my sister's in high school going through this, and also my other sisters at so I have two younger sisters. The other one's at Rutgers right now doing this.
Mm,
And I feel like, and this is just from my perspective, like look at them like go through virtual schooling like at home or whatever. It just seems like the teachers, not that they don't care, but they don't have the energy to foster those relationships, unlike being in school and like having them face to face. So
yeah,
I'm
Mhm.
sure your kids are actually really appreciative of that, honestly.
they are, and it's just on Friday I was thinking like, okay, I'm in my apartment alone. Like I would have had no interaction with anybody if I didn't have that job. You know,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, that's so
they
true.
are the interaction. Like
oh,
so,
absolutely.
you want to bring the best of yours. I want to bring the best of myself to that because who knows what they're going through at home, and like connection is like how we thrive at the end of the day. Like I know the district's killing me, like grades are due, this is due, attendance, but I think every teacher out there right now is just like just worried about like are their kids okay
Yeah.
Yeah.
at
Oh,
the
for
end of
sure.
the day. And you know, it's sucking that like the level of education and like the grading system right now, I think is a little unfair. There's too many contingencies. I think we will see effects in education of how this time has affected this group of kids.
Totally. Totally.
But we just need to keep our eyes open. And what we also need to do is start working on better policies, because just like you said, Brittany, the things that you saw in place in New Jersey, like I see crazy things in place here.
Yeah.
It's
Hmm.
like, who's winning? It's not the kids.
Yeah.
And that's
I agree
unfortunate
with you.
because school
Those are
is for
so,
the kids.
yeah, those are the things that's why I started doing what I was doing. Um, because it got really frustrating for me to be in a situation where, like you have, even if you're not doing the right thing, right? Even if there's a better choice to be made, if your intentions are to be helping those children and then there's a lot of like bureaucracy that gets in the way of doing that, then like you said, like who is it helping? And
Yeah.
Hmm.
it's just not fair to the kids. And it's so funny, like I have so I'm still like teaching yoga also. So I have one-on-one like yoga therapeutic clients, and a lot of them are actually teachers because I love teachers. It's like those are my people. And I hear so much about their experiences because that's where a lot of the stress that they hold on to obviously comes from, is teaching in this situation. And the things that I hear about, like the experience of the way that they're teaching has changed, but the results and expectations of the way that they're supposed to be like helping these kids hasn't changed. If anything else, it's become like more harsh and more
Right.
finite.
Right. And you're turning up the volume on it.
Right. And these like then the parents are stressing out because they can't do what they need to support their kids at home, and the teachers only can go so far. So that I see that too, Jada. I think you're right. I think that if I'm hopeful that some type of reform in the way that we look at education, like in our country as a whole, I hope will be a benefit that comes from this. But at the end of the day, if we don't do something about it, the kids who are going to get stressed out from this, the teachers who are going to get stressed out from this, are not going to have any benefit. And we're totally going to see like the potential consequences of this in the future. But teachers who are like I love what you said about wanting to make sure that your kids are okay, because they really do. They need that now more than ever. They
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
do. It's so hard.
Hmm.
I don't know how I like thank God Maria lives across the street from me, but if
Yeah.
we were kids growing up in this, I never would have made it.
I don't know how they are.
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
Right.
like my
It's interesting. The Illinois State Board mandated that we do social emotional learning. So
Did
that
they?
every Illinois state school has to add that into the curriculum. They have to
Wow.
work into the school schedule. So I mean, they're trying to do something, but they do need a moment where they need to talk to somebody. So
Absolutely. So what does that entail? That you just check in with your kids and stuff,
social
or
emotional learning.
yeah.
One day you're talking about how to tap into your creative side. One day you're learning like stress management, emotional learning, how to journal prompts, things
That's
like
good.
they check in with we have mentors at my school district. So you
Hmm.
know they're paid to be the lookout people, and they lead those sessions.
That's at least something. I don't know if anything's mandated here, you know? Like so at least
I
there's
don't think so.
I don't think so either.
It's
But
like
that's
everyone
good.
from South
Have trauma
Situation.
informed practices. But Brittany, I want to, before we move on into another topic, I wanted to ask, like, your yoga one-on-one clients, what type of yoga is that?
Oh yeah. So I actually went through the program that was at Rutgers the year we graduated that summer. I did the Vinyasa based program.
Right. Okay.
But being one of the biggest things that I learned through like my post school was that I like movement for wellness, like movement in terms of like healing and like that very intrinsic somatic movement. So I started diving into like yoga as a therapy, so yoga therapeutics. So the one-on-one clients that I work with primarily is like almost like occupational therapy, but based on therapeutic movement to help them like combat anything that they're dealing with during their stressful work weeks.
I love that. Yoga for healing.
Yeah, exactly. Because we experienced movement in a very like going back to like the intense situation we talked about being in college. Like we experienced movement a lot in terms of like end results, performance
harsh?
aspect.
Yeah, very product based.
Yeah, like very hard, and that's why I got injured as much as I did. I was not prepared for any of that when we got there, so that created like a lot of that situation for me, and that's I honestly like by the time we were done with school I was like I don't know how I feel about dance anymore because my body just didn't feel good. And that was when I realized like okay, I have to look at this a slightly different way. So I started looking at movement, even dance, in terms of like a healing wellness, like really intrinsic experience versus like performance and outsourced end result. So when I work with dancers now and when I just work with regular people, I try to draw them into that like more interpersonal relationship with movement in terms of like taking care of themselves, so that whatever if they want to dance or they just want to live like a healthy life where their body's not hurting, they can do that better.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you don't miss like being in pain all the time?
Nope.
She took the
Honestly, and I get reminded of it very often because I mean I'm still dealing with the stuff that I dealt like the stuff that I brought on, right? It's like the rest of our lives are going to be managing those things that like at 14 to 19, things I didn't know that I was doing to my body. Like now I have to deal with that.
That's honestly kudos to you guys. It's just crazy. I feel like dancers, whenever I see like dancers around Rutgers or just know that you guys are in like, Mason Gross or whatever, I'm just like, I don't know how you guys do that. Honestly. Even like the kids that do like play instruments and stuff, like I think they go hard too.
Yeah, and the actors, like
and the actors. Oh my god, that whole school, honestly, as I'm just like crunching
that
numbers
building was
in
never
Livingston
silent.
campus.
Like never silent. There was
it was always
something.
Class.
Yep, there was always something going on in there. So
this is what we did: is sweatpants and coffee.
Bro, dude, you. I feel like it was every college kid sweatpants and coffee, especially. All right, I will say like the business school, crunching numbers, guys, gets fucking tiring during college. I will say that.
Livingston, in a different
way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different. Yeah, that is true. It's a whole different ball game, honestly.
My goodness. Well, the stuff that we went through. But okay, so now I want to because I told you when I like first reached out to you and I saw your blog, like I want to hear more. And it's interesting for me too because that's a side of you, and that's what I think I love. Is like we saw very specific sides of like who we were in school.
Yeah.
And like because we were under the stressful situations we were under and like the limited like the amount of time that we were together and the focus that we were on when we were together, like I am super excited to like hear more about what you're doing with your blog and like what other things you're doing outside of teaching that you said you found like you kind of reawakened who you are after you were done with school. So was the blog how you did that?
It was really like after school, taking some time. When you grew up 18 years in the same dynamics, it really takes you getting up out of somewhere to really look at the effects of that.
Mm-hmm.
So there were some like unhealthy dynamics that I grew up with, and it wasn't until meeting people at Rutgers that they were able to like hold up a mirror and like point it out. So then when I moved back home, I was just as much as I was working on my career, my dance career, I kind of felt like this shift going on within me. Like I just felt like there was more to me and more to what just like the healing journey I saw when I would like look out at outside resources. I wouldn't find stories that I connected with that were just like 100% just real and raw. Like, how do you actually heal from like unhealthy coping mechanisms? How do you heal
Mhm.
from toxic spiral thoughts? How do you heal from people pleasing? How do you heal from like always feeling blame for somebody else's emotions, abuse? Like, who's unpacking that type of stuff? I
Mhm.
felt like it was very like toxic positivity, like think positive, but I never knew what the steps were to get there. What are the
Right.
action steps?
So sick.
I don't think anyone ever tells you that.
No.
Right. And that's what I think wellness is, like health and implementation. So I wanted to kind of show how I've been maturing myself on an emotional, spiritual side that isn't just like,
Mhm.
today I journal and I'm so grateful for this. It's like really digging into like, now if this is in my life and I'm grateful for it, like what am I gonna do every day to honor that? You know what I'm saying? How am I
Mhm.
gonna be consistent in that?
It's the next step that no one really does, really.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
or not even does, but just doesn't. They are not aware that there's a next step other than
Well,
just
yeah.
bullet journaling. Like, I'm grateful today for this, and then just like leaving it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I grew up always think my mom always told me like there's not a one all day cure for like all your like, those
I
emotions
wish.
that weigh you down, the abuse, just things you haven't unpacked, just life coming at you.
Mhm.
There's
Mhm.
not a one day you're gonna be like, you're gonna read a quote and you're gonna be like, I feel great. Like it's a constant journey. And actually, the more you elevate, the more you see things from different sides. So there's
I know.
more things
And
to
the harder it is.
experience. Right.
But it only gets
Exactly.
better, I feel like, even though it is hard for
You're
sure.
so on point. I'm so happy that I started going into your blog because you're so on point. What you're saying is literally Maria, like, please say something if you don't agree, but like this is what this podcast 100% is.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah,
It's
I
that
love
next step.
to meet other people who are committed
yeah.
and connected on this journey too.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
I agree with you.
Mhm.
I and I oh, so frustrating. You have so many expectations that you walk around with like what the world tells you or what people around you tell you that you're supposed to be. And then and like I think it's beautiful that you felt like at school like you found people who were able to help you like dive into that. I feel like at school I had friends who kind of I loved everyone that I met and they were in my life for a reason, but I was never put in a situation where I had a loving person who was going to be like, well, let's actually hold up a mirror and let's talk about this. I feel like we were in a situation where I personally felt like I had to be on the defense so much because I knew I had to get a job done. And I was just blinded by that I never got to assess myself. And it wasn't until after we left school. And it's right, like, you don't know what's going on inside your circle until you step out of that circle
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and you really look at it. And
Because
after
you're
that,
tunnel
I was
vision.
kind of like I went into like I started having panic attacks. I had to go like I had went into like a deep depression, like not fun stuff, but that was the only way that I was going to start to realize, oh my goodness, like
Yeah.
what has happened? Like who are you? Like what you said, like
Yeah.
I found out like I had like a lot of trauma from like my childhood and
Mhm.
things that you just think are normal, right? No one ever tells you like that what you're experiencing is or that like your mind is necessarily working against you in any way shape or form or that you have to cope and like learn how to deal with this and that this is not who you are, right?
Yeah.
Like this is the system that was developed by the world that you're in, and its only job is to keep you safe.
Right.
So you're not like you got to override it.
Exactly. It wants to keep you safe. And sometimes it's just like it'll give you a nudge, nudge, nudge when it's time to just step on out of that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for
But
sure.
it's the system that we live in. Jada, there's always like I always have like three things that are like the reason
What
why
are
the
those three
world
things about?
is how it is, and I feel like this is appropriate. Some of them are probably true. I always say it's capitalism, politics, and religion are the things that hold us back in this world.
Or the
And I,
things that really shape us. Like they're the things that shape who we are before we get to shape who we are.
Mhm.
Exactly. The messages just have been passed down. And I'm so excited to be in this generation of people right
Same.
now
Yeah.
because I see a clear, distinct difference between like our parents and what they put up with. And we're just not happening, I feel like. We're
Hell
questioning
no.
For sure.
things. We're saying no, we aren't gonna be oppressed. What is the truth? And I
Agreed.
think is very it is what it means. It you have to discover your own truth. But I feel like we're in a time where people are, here's my truth, here's my testimony, here's this, here's that. Like we're not silent about our trauma.
No,
Agreed.
for
Agreed.
sure.
We
You
gotta
know?
dismantle the system.
Yeah, Exactly. And
Yeah.
we're not going to be shy about saying how actually this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, we're going to do something new.
Because, it goes back to when you guys were saying that your schooling is more product based as opposed to like more intrinsically like for you and like your health.
Which is
and your-
ironic because that's not what art is about.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That was
So it's
always a
like,
controversy that I struggled with, like, personally.
like,
Trying to like fit a mold.
Yeah.
right, like if you guys, especially as creatives, like during school, like obviously you guys want to be creative and like tap into your own emotional like journey within like dance and everything, not like a whole this is how you should do it because this is the results that other people want you to do. Like I feel like that's just capitalism to a T, and like that's just honestly as a creative, like I think that's bullshit. If I can be blunt, like I don't think like especially if you're in a top like 5 like art school or whatever, like why are we teaching kids to hinder their mental and physical well-being while they're doing something that they want to do, like it sounds so dumb.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Why is that okay? Why do we need to like make carbon copies of like worker bees in the world? Like,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so
And that's the thing,
my
like,
2 cents.
that's why the capitalist take is, like, when you full on become a duplicate of somebody else, they have control, right? Like, and you become this mindless drone. And you're right, Jada. Like, I'm excited and afraid of our generation because we have so much knowledge and we are literally the precipice that's going to make a difference for like the rest of our existence as humans.
yes.
Like, we can either really hold on to that knowledge, and like you said, it's all about application. Like, we are the generation that has a lot more self-awareness than the ones that came before us. But it's, what do you do with that awareness? And
Right.
do you still continue to learn about yourself? Because I agree with you too. Like, I'm going to be on the journey that I'm on and like dealing with my stuff for the rest of my life. And if you're not able to like step up, and there are days that I lose that fight, and there are days that I win, but if you're not able to make the commitment to step up to doing that, and if we can't all do that as a generation and like the future of humanity, and come together and have these conversations and really point out the shit that doesn't work, and have the difficult conversations about how we can actually change it and progress, then that's what makes me nervous. But I'm really hopeful that the more that like each person shares their story and shares their truth, and the more of us that, I think that's what's happening. I think the more that everybody talks about it, the more that it's starting to like get that the Wizard of Oz kind of situation, right? We're starting to be Toto that pulls out that sheet, that curtain, and make sure that everybody really sees what's going on. And that's the way that we're going to make a difference in the long run.
Yeah, light workers unite.
Absolutely.
Amen.
And so, segue, your blog is doing that. So
Yes.
I want to know, well, the first question I have is divine downloads, right?
Divine download.
I'm sorry. Where did that name come from?
My podcasting journey. I was what was I listening to? Tarot for the Wild Soul. So this year I wanted to step up my intuition, so I was learning tarot cards.
Wow, that's so cool.
I pull a set every day. I pull a set of 3 cards every day. So I was listening to Lindsay Mack, who has Tarot for the Wild Soul, and she kept talking about just like messages that come to you. You don't even know, but it's like with things that are kind of intangible. It's just like a message on your heart.
Okay.
So that's what a download is. It's kind of just like just the inner knowing. And divine means of God. So I just put those together, and here we go, divine download.
Oh,
I gotta go back to the tarot cards because like I've been so interested in those. Like I don't know what they like. You pull 3 cards, right?
Yes.
And is it like? Because sometimes it's like this is something about your past, present, future, but also it could be just anything that you want to manifest. I guess.
Right.
I don't even know.
It could be so many questions. So let me make sure everybody knows. It can't predict the future, and it's not voodoo. What it does is it brings up the knowledge of your ancestors and what they would have done in this situation. You know,
so cool.
Like I didn't know that.
Your previous gets into your spirit and like your spirit guides, and it's just like if the guides were to say something right now, looking at your situation as an observer, what would they really be saying?
Oh, I had no idea.
I didn't have no idea it was related to ancestry at all. My mother does tarot, and she never told me any of that.
I had
But she
no
does it for,
idea.
but she does it for herself. She doesn't do it for anybody else. So I guess at that point, it's like,
Yeah, I don't. But there's like the way the divination is. Like, there's
Mhm.
different people. The suits mean different things. Like, so there's some variation in there.
got it.
I got a deck that specifically speaks about an Aboriginal family, like the first, like a family from slavery, a Black family.
Oh, okay.
Speaking of like the history of like Black nativity and like Black ancestors and stuff, so that's kind of where my knowledge about it have come from. But I mean, it's probably pretty. There's some.
Yeah, I didn't even know, and also I didn't even know that that different like sets or decks or
I didn't know that either.
are
Yeah.
like from
So
different.
cool.
I didn't even know the word because I'm so tired.
Right,
Like,
right. I'm
like
trying
what is the word for this? Like different not purposes, but like something like
themes in a sense.
yes. I didn't know that. This
The
is
energy
so
carries
interesting.
across. Like the coins are always going to be pentacles. The swords are always going to be a mental thing.
Gotcha.
Cups represent emotions. So things like that. You'll see that across the board if any tarot readers.
That's so what when you go to your cards, this is gonna like I love the it's a divine guidance, right? It's another layer of having and I also think it's really smart because it gets you out of your own head. Like it gets you into the like taking on another perspective in a way and trying to uncover stuff with like a true self intention versus like your ego trying to figure it out for you. So what got you to start like with the tarot cards and like do you find yourself using them more like when you're feeling like more like your emotions are getting in your way of making a decision or when you feel like you're at a crossroads like what got you into them and what's your real intent and why you would want to use them or you would recommend someone else use them for?
Yes, I definitely agree. The first reason I would say it does get you out of your own situation, like let's say I lost my house, you know what I'm saying? And I pull a card that says like, oh, this is a tower. Really, this ending signifies this new beginning. But in my limited perspective, I'm seeing like, oh, I lost my house. Like this is just like something terrible for me, but it's actually on the precipice of something good. So I feel like you can kind of step outside of what's going on and be like, oh, everything has a purpose. Everything is here for me and it's not happening really to me. It's here to like take me to the next level. So like coming full force with that whole understanding. And I do think it just connects you more with synchronicity, intuition, seeing the signs and things. And it also, I find it really powerful because like, I feel like I have access to all of the energies in my tarot cards. So my blog really speaks of like how you can choose your vibrational state. And that's a part of the reason of like why I talk about raising your vibration, but like knowing that like I had the happiest card there and like the saddest card there. Like it kind of I feel a little more powerful because like I can choose which direction I want to go with this, knowing that every single tarot card is medicine. It's gonna have a high vibrational and it's gonna have a shadow. You feel me? So it's like you can choose like, am I going to take it in this like, am I being sneaky or deceived, or like what are the tarot cards showing me? Or is this like, okay, this maybe was a failure for now, but next time I can scan my situation a little more and come back with victory.
It sets you up it's really hard to dive into your intuition and dive into those moments where you have to turn into your true self to make decisions in a real life situation, right? Because then you have pressures on you and like your ego gets in your way and then you're like, oh my gosh, fight or flight. All of this other stuff gets in the way for you to actually listen to that voice and like listen to that higher power. But I love, like, from what you're saying, it sounds like those tarot cards give you the opportunity to not be in a potential fight or flight or like an at-risk situation, but it gives you a comfortable place to be able to dive in and have those deeper conversations with yourself. And then hopefully like encourage that so well in that setting that you're able to do it more consistently and more of like a well response to like your real life situations because you have that power kind of turned on and like running through you.
Exactly. Because
awesome.
we can choose the response.
Totally.
That's
that was the first thing I learned when we got out of college, because I was like reacting to everything and trying to like just make it work out, and then I was like, oh no,
That's just young adulting. You don't know what you're doing
true.
until you find something. Like, it could be tarot cards, it could be like, I don't know, your religious, like, belief or whatever, or anything, any higher power. Once you kind of get your intuition back and you're just like, oh wait, I'm settled. Like, let me settle and like think this through as opposed to just reacting. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's just outside of college, just right out of college. I feel like a lot of us are like that.
Yeah.
Or we're like that.
When you don't have all that on
They
you.
have to find their way to deal with how resistance comes in their life. It's going to be different for everybody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, for sure. And it's so interesting. So I've gone on like my personal journeys of like going through Maria and I talk about this at length, but the very first way that I got tapped into, like even thinking about spirituality, higher powers, all of that was through religion. But I had a really hard relationship with religion growing up. My father's Jewish, my mother's Catholic. I was not accepted anywhere. So I had a lot of issues with that, with like being a part of a religion. And it wasn't, honestly, like yoga was the first thing that the philosophies behind like Hinduism and Buddhism and yoga philosophies were the first thing that made me realize like it can be more about a spiritual, a faithful, a naturalistic approach. And like everything you're saying about energies, I feel like I'm with you on it because I believe in all of that. And I also think it's very scientific. And
it's quantum physics at the end of the day.
Right, exactly.
In 2021. But yeah, everything has a frequency, a way.
Yeah, and I like, so that makes it more tangible for me because I'm a huge science nerd. So I love what you're saying about that, having that ability to, it's that voice in your head is an energy. Like that voice in your head it either comes from two places. It comes from your brain, the machine that was built by society, or it comes from somewhere else, like a greater thing that you're connected to.
Right.
And the more that you can like tap into that connection to like I'm at a place where I don't necessarily use the word God because I feel like it's very specific to the way that I was supposed to look at what God was as like a man or a being. I use universe. But I think about how the more that I can tap into that voice, that intrinsic conversation with the universe, the more I'm going to be able to actually respond to things. The more that I'm going to be able to better relate and communicate and connect to other things and people. Right. And I think I never honestly thought about like tarot as, first of all, I never knew tarot as like the way that you're describing it, but it makes me feel like, oh, maybe you should, it's something that you practice, right? It's like, it's a personal practice for yourself, and whatever your intention is behind it. I'm like, kind of want to play with it now and see, create more of those situations where I can have more of that connection to that higher power. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Jada, this is so cool.
Are you reading it now?
No, yeah, the body graph thing. So first,
it's so cool.
I'm sure that this very much aligns with like the chakras. Are you familiar with the chakras?
Before we go on, because we had a little mini break, Jada wrote a blog post 2 days ago.
Oh, sorry. Yes, fill everybody in on what we're talking about.
Yeah, because we had guys, for the people that are listening, we had like a 5-minute bathroom break for Brittany. So Jada wrote a blog post on her blog, which we'll link down in the description below everywhere, called Abundantly Designed, Raising Your Vibration Through Human Design. And there's a graph, like a little body graph, that lists like your 9 centers, right?
Yes.
And again, Brittany was just gonna say, like, it looks like chakras, or it sounds like it, right? Brittany?
It refers to similar centers of power, like the chakras does, but the body graph is very different.
Oh, okay, okay, gotcha.
There's 2 more.
Yeah, and I mean, this, and it makes I'm gonna go through this, and I'm gonna be messaging you on Instagram about it later once I go through all of it. But I think it's interesting that the spleen is one.
Yeah, and that's a whole different experience. I think with splenic people,
that's a word, splenic.
They hear that yes or danger in a totally different way.
That's
insane. So this dives deeper into, for the people listening, vibrations again, right? Like different vibrations in your in your body and whatnot.
It's energy. It's all energy centers of your body, and the way that like. So like Maria, I know Maria and I have had these conversations because like we've vaguely talked about chakras before. But just like you said, Jada, like energy scientifically cannot be created or destroyed. It's always going to be going. Something's going to be happening. So whatever happens to you and happens to your body happens to your body, right? Your body can take it on in some way or shape or form. Different parts of your body are going to process it. And it's like, it's your choice to hold on to it or let it go. Like, again, like more with like making choices. But this is super interesting. I love how you brought up the point, like in the beginning of the blog where you talk about, like being blamed for things. And I love that that's the way that led you. Why is that what led you into talking about this?
Because again, I'm going through a time where I'm just like, what's my shit and what's your shit? And when we are blamed, especially guilt and shame, that's actually, I wrote that as a note. Those heavy emotions where somebody feels like, oh, you owe me, like that's where it can really suck you down and keep draining more energy from you. So again, I went into this practice just looking for ways that I can unload that energy. Because do you ever feel like a heaviness, but you don't really know where it's coming from or what it is?
And that's I'm excited to like dive into and learn more about this. So thank you for bringing this up to me because I wouldn't have known about it, and I love all of this. Like it's like the science of energy and like related to our body and the way that we are.
It really is physics. Yeah, you're right. It's like quantum physics.
It's energy physics. But the stuff that you're bringing up, it's as if religion is not enough, but shame and guilt are like the two. It's the demise of like having a positive human existence. It's terrible that we are even allowed to feel those things. But and like that's how like that's part of like the things that my trauma are related to, are shame and guilt experiences. But
in the way that you were brought up in the church too,
right? They
how they and how I guess we, because I'm still a part of that, deal with that.
But it's so interesting because it's like, again, it comes back to those three things that Maria said. It's like the way that we want to live as humans, the way that we want to connect, and the things that we know that are positive, like those positive experiences. But because we come from situations where maybe we have to deal with those things that are not so nice, or like not so nice things happen to us. Like look at this year alone. Like people make the decision, they start to learn how they can utilize shame and guilt to get what they want, or it's like to manipulate other people. And then I don't think that people do it on purpose. I just think that it becomes
the
like
level of self-awareness there. Exactly. And that's another thing where it's just like, okay, if this is a pattern, you don't even know that you're used to sucking emotional energy out of people by guilting and shaming them.
Yeah.
You know?
It's so, I actually just had this conversation with my mother the other day. My mother's actually, we went to go buy, she's looking at Mother of the Bride dresses for our wedding next year. And these are conversations, mind you, I could not have had with my mother like 3-4 years ago, like, because they were never going to happen. But we were talking about how important like self-awareness is, and like interactions that we've had with other people in our family and other people in our lives, where we had to take reality and say, like, the people that we love, we cannot help them if they don't choose to help themselves and have self-awareness. And it's it can be a burden for the people who want to have the self-awareness, because you know that, they're not willing to do the work, or maybe they're not even awake enough to see that there's something that they need to do for themselves. And you have to love them anyway. And you have to give to them anyway, without having those boundaries to have something taken from you. That, like, and it comes back to what you said, Jada, like the further you go in it, the more crap that there is that you have to carry around and start unpacking. And it's harder. It's harder. But
with family, it's just like, I truly believe in past lives, and there's like a contract, and like you've probably known everybody in your family before. So the fact that we have to learn those boundaries and stuff with these people that we are in it for life, it's like, child, I hope you get educated. Who's trying to be up here and 85 with so much resentment?
Yeah.
Never worked on your issues, like, gross.
Yeah. And I've been
absolutely gross.
Yeah. And we actually, Maria and I went down like the pathway of talking about death a couple episodes ago. But I've listened to, and I guess it's like this. That's probably why I brought up death last like 2 weeks ago, Maria. But I've been
for 2 weeks straight, not even 2 weeks. it was like 2 weeks ago, and then last week I was like, "What's happening? Are you okay?" Like,
the nothing else. I guess I've been putting myself in this perspective to want to look at life in a long term, because I mean the truth is life is really long, but it's also really short.
It's like long but excruciatingly short for some
right.
reason.
So it's like I'm trying to look at, who I want to be in the journey that I'm here for. and Marie and I talked about this recently too. Like, I strongly believe in reincarnation. I think that's one of the things that makes me comfortable with the idea of dying. But whoever I'm going to be at this point, I want to make sure that I'm improving myself by the time I reach wherever it is that my end point is going to be in this body, in this life. And I've been listening to like talks and podcasts and like books that relate to like having conversations with people who are older and things that they say at the end of their life, or like the perspective that they take and the way they look at life and the things that they regret in their life. And you're like, it all comes back to like, I wish I had, like, the regrets that people have aren't like, oh, I wish that I had more money. Like, nothing that anything that society would say is important. It's like, oh, I wish that I would have done what I loved. Oh, I wish I would have spent more time with my family. Oh, I wish that I would have really said how I was feeling and had true connections with people. Like,
I wish I wasn't so petty and
right.
This degree, I never said sorry. Like,
because at the end of like, none of that stuff, it's not coming with us. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter in those moments. It's that's the perspective. I'm with you on the YOLO, but I feel like I could very easily get like, my ego would run with it and I'd go real hard and it'd be real scary. But like, in that perspective of like, emotionally, I want to try to live like it's the last day every day, you know, you like not have any of those regrets and say the things that you're feeling and have those really strong connections with people, because at the end of the day, when we actually want them, it's gonna be too late.
And that's that hindsight, you know, in the perception of like, oh, it just went by so fast. What more could I have done in that time? How could I have been way more present?
Exactly. And that's definitely 100% how I feel about like experiences with school. Like, it was so difficult, and because of that difficulty, like, have you read the book crap, I can't think of what it's called. She talks about I talked about this with you, Maria. She talks about like a love warrior. Have you heard of that book before?
Love warrior, I haven't.
I listened to it. I listened to it in an audiobook while I was driving down to Maryland to see my family, and I literally cried the whole way down. So I don't recommend listening to an audiobook while you're driving a car. But the story, the author talks about how she was living her life really protecting herself emotionally, and she was sending out a representative to like be the person who would protect her in the world. So like, people were interacting with her representative more or less and not really interacting with who she really was. And she talks about this whole process and like these things that she deals with in her life and how she has to break down that representative and start showing up as her true self. And that book was literally like I relate that to like my college experience all the time, because I definitely sent out my representative more than I sent out who I really was in those moments, because of the anxieties and the pressures and all of that. And that was what I wanted to change about being an adult.
That you want to be your true self all the time.
Yeah, and not have a representative that I sent out there. And so much of it comes from like really stupid fears. Like, such stupid fears. Like the things that we deal with when we're growing up about like, are people
capitalism, religion, politics.
All those things that get pushed on us. And it's like, we, without having the ability to really see what the way those things are molding us, like you said before, like shaping us to fit these molds. If we don't realize that where those pressures are coming from, we're never going to be able to address them.
And I think honestly, like the stuff that you post on your blog, I feel like helps people understand that, just to bring this full circle.
I love that. Yeah, you're doing exactly what you want to do and giving people the tangible
space,
knowledge
again,
to apply.
The space and the knowledge to apply to their own lives, really. It's like a jumping point. Like, here's the start of like everything, which we don't get. Which you said before, like we never get, and the only emotional education that we ever get growing up is from the people around us, which is why those generational habits keep coming.
Right. And
so
it takes four generations of people to beat that out of them.
Right. Like that breaking those generational habits, it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. It's a daily work for sure.
But what you're doing with Divine Download is beautifully going to be able to help people support, like, once they even if they don't really have that awareness, just to like encourage them to say, hey, let's widen your perspective a little bit. And then if you want to dive into this, like these are ways that are applicable to do it.
Let's overcome all these perspectives that just make us feel so limited.
Yeah. Because that's not why we're here. I 110% believe that we were not put here to like feel that way, to feel not good, to feel alone, to feel isolated.
We're here to go to go home to ourselves, and then we'll do it again in the next lifetime and figure out more.
Yeah,
Mhm.
agreed.
It's always a learning. Every day is a learning experience, honestly.
I love that. And thank you for you to essentially like so nicely like emphasize everything that we talk about in this podcast all the time. So thank you for sharing your journey
Yeah,
and like wanting to share
it's community, Brittany.
for sharing
Mhm.
divine download, because we're gonna talk about it all the time on the podcast now, because I'm gonna be like I'm gonna go into all the science that's behind the article that you just shared, and I want to be talking about it more. But yeah, so tell us. I'm gonna ask you some questions because I love like the nitty gritty, and I know that what you say is gonna be helpful to people. If for
Hopefully.
people who are just finishing like their school journey, right? Or like all three of us have said that we've gone through that personal journey where we realize like we want to reawaken ourselves, or we want to really tap into who we really are at the end of being what everyone said we should have been.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to someone who's like at that point in their life where they feel like they need to make the transition, but they like, what advice would you give them on how to really start doing that for themselves?
I would say strengthen up on your self-acceptance muscles. I think from the greatest of vibrations to the lowest of emotional energy, like it's there for a reason, and learning how to sit and feel with it and feel what is going on, I think just adds more compassion in a sense, where greater things can come to you because you've like made a safe home. So even if you're fearing some things, or like things are going to change, like it all comes with it. Sit with yourself and know that to be feeling limited or blocked or anything like that, or like feels like things are not going your way, like this too shall pass. And maybe those quiet times are the times where you really get to know yourself and find out your heart.
I can agree to that for sure. People need to sit with themselves. That's how I found where I wanted to go
There's
with
an
life.
end game, and I used to get really caught up in just like, I'm feeling away, like this defines me for life. And to that person, just know it doesn't. Just
Correct.
know it's just one more step, you know, to true discovery, another path opening. So much abundance.
Having to separate when you've been lassoed to sit, like being told that the way you feel is who you are for your whole life, and then you realize like you have to separate those two things, it's like catastrophic. But it can be catastrophic
good way.
It can be like your demise, or it could be catastrophic and leading to like you being free of all of that and being able to live a better life. Amazing. This is wonderful. If what is one other question, I promise. What Maria and I talk a lot about like things that we've learned about ourselves. I think that's one of the biggest things that we share on this podcast, Maria, is like the stuff that we've learned in our personal journeys with it. What would you say has been like a lesson or an understanding, awareness that you've like one of the biggest ones, or like maybe foundation shaking things that you learned about yourself that you've been able to address?
Oh, totally. Stop projecting.
I love
this is a PSA to everyone. Stop projecting. Honestly,
I've talked about this before. I swear, like anything in a person or a situation that you feel yourself like called to, like it's probably in there somewhere with you. So just trust that, and just know you don't need a person or anything or a title or a job or to get you there. It lives inside.
That's amazing.
That's a really good point.
And I definitely stop. I definitely learned how to recognize false idols and like stop. Like just energy out when it's just like start cultivating inside.
Oh, that should be a shirt in and of itself, though, right?
Honestly.
I love
for
that.
Sure,
Jada, thank you so much for joining us. This was like, I'm so pumped, and like, Maria, I hope you're more awake now, because I feel super awake.
I'm super awake now too, honestly.
Thank you so much for joining us. Tell everybody how they can follow you, find your blog, give all the information, and we'll share it in like the
little description. The description box.
The description. You can tell Maria does all that stuff, and I don't, because I don't even know what it is.
Okay, guys. So go to the subscription box and then click that link. It's divinedownload.com, but the E is a 3.
Divine, yep.
So I'll make sure it's spelled completely correct in the description box. And then find me on IG. It's Divine Download with 2 D's at the end. And that one is DIVINE Download 2 D's. And I would love for you to, if you're liking what I speak about, if you have your own personal testimonies, I would love for you to shoot me a comment on my blog or even join my subscription list.
Perfect.
Jada,
Yes,
thank
we'll
you so
put this
much.
all in there. Yes.
And
Thank
for
you
dealing with our
Thank
time
you for
difference
having
stuff.
me. Nice to meet you, Maria.
You too.
Like, I'm so excited to be in this community now, and
Absolutely.
like,
We'll connect on Instagram. I'll add you later.
yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you go follow Jada and you read her latest blog because you're going to be in it and you're going to want to learn more about yourself. And I hope it unlocks a whole lot of wonderful things for you. But we will catch you guys on the next episode.
Bye.
Thanks, Jada.